Hey guys, welcome to the SIPS experience. I am Scylla Kavanaugh, your host, and you know that this is the place that we talk about self love, soul purpose, sexual wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited today because I'm going to introduce you to my official co host, Miss Katy Jayne. Say hello
Hello.
and just give us, your reason for being here today and why you're so excited to be my co host.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Katy Jayne. I am a fellow adult performer who's been in the business about 10 years now. I'm here because Scylla and I are aligned with our beliefs, and we decided to team up because we're very passionate about ending violence against women. And we both become ambassadors for this new organization called HASSL. So, Scylla, what
I
do you
love
think?
that. I love that. And I think it's worth telling our listeners that this partnership is not just about the podcast collab, but we both are ambassadors for HASSL. And HASSL is a global anti harassment and safety movement built around tackling harassment at the root and creating safer spaces, especially for women.
Sally.
So they mobilize ambassadors worldwide, like Katy and I, and they advocate and educate and push initiatives that shift responsibility for safety as a whole and not just on the people that are actually getting harmed.
Exactly.
So we're going to be talking about all of that and how that kind of relates back to the adult entertainment industry and a lot of misconceptions that are around the performers as well as the industry itself. So we're just going to dive deeper into that. And today's conversation is one that gets misunderstood constantly, both by the people who consume this content and the people who criticize it, without ever talking to someone who's actually lived in it.
Right.
You agree? Do you what's your opinion of like the concept of fantasy and reality? Because I think that's a big factor in our industry, and the fact that consumers a lot of times think that what we're doing is real life. And so they
Right.
take that and they put it into their own personal relationships. And that's when it really causes friction. And a lot of times we get blamed for their behavior. So
Exactly.
what's your idea on that?
Okay, so when it comes to fantasy versus reality, I'd say we're creating art. It's an art form. It's a visual medium. It's generally pretty choreographed. We have every position planned out, and it's just there to be enjoyed as entertainment. It's a movie, just like Hollywood movies. Just enjoy it, appreciate it. Don't take it too seriously. And that's pretty much it.
Exactly. So give me a walkthrough of what actually goes on in a scene that the audience never sees, like the negotiations, the blocks, the consent. What actually happens on a set that they don't ever see? They just see the movie, and then they
Exactly.
think, "Oh, that's this movie. No matter what's happening, there's no discussion about it. Like we're just
And
going
it's
to
such a
assume this is
shame they
just
don't see the BTS. Like, as soon as you get to set, well, first thing is you're putting makeup. So you get your makeup done. And then once that's ready, this big pile of paperwork comes at you. And that's got your model releases, your legal releases to say that you're okay with the content being published publicly for the consumption and commercial, blah, 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 including a document about consent. And most studios now will have a document about consent listing blowjob, black on blank, like, okay, missionary, kissing, snogging. Well, I won't say snogging, that's me being British.
okay.
Like fingering, penetration, anal, double anal. Every act you can think of is listed on this form, and you tick what you do and do not want to do and what is expected in that scene. You'll then get the director to go through it with you and your co-star or your co-stars. Everyone talks about what is and isn't okay. I sign my colleagues' paperwork, they sign mine, director signs everyone's. And then we get ready to do the scene, and the director will talk us through the script if there's a big intro. And once we've got through the intro, the director will sit us down and go, right, guys, let's start with a blowjob. Okay, now, first position, what do you want it to be? Missionary, doggy, pick what you want. And then we decide on 4 positions and the order they're going to be in pretty much. And then while those positions are kind of set in stone, we can go back and forth to a degree during the sex if the passion is there. And then there's the cum shot. And it can be, depending on what type of scene it is, like most of my scenes involve a lot of boob play. So most of my cum shots are on my boobs. We'll have the pop and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it's very choreographed. The way I look at us as adult entertainers are almost like a sensual, aka sexual athlete. It's very
Yes.
physical. It's not something you do in your normal life. It's not something I would ever do in my
The
normal life.
positions are not like natural. You are opening up your hip in a way that isn't a natural way to be penetrated with. Because you're trying to get that
Exactly.
camera angle so they can get in and they can see the pussy and the penis being
And
penetrated.
lots of camera. Like the camera is there, people are there, lights are there. It's a whole production. It's a whole movie. And
Yeah, there's
I
loads of
like to say that,
lighting. There's like two cameramen minimum. You've got the director. Sometimes there's an intimacy coordinator plus the PA.
and I like to compare it, just recently to like what was Euphoria. Like she is pretending to be a
Yes.
OF creator, and honestly, like just the scenes that were created for that are not much different than what we do,
Yeah,
except for
staged.
the actual sex and penetration. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
we have
sex is real, but the scenario obviously is not. And the
exactly,
way the sex is
exactly,
carried out is very much orchestrated in a way so that the audience can see the highlights of what we're doing, which is obviously what's
right.
going on below the waist.
What do you think is the reason people confuse performance for a how to, quote, how to of real intimacy? Why do you think they get confused?
It's a good question. Lack of sex ed. So they're going to porn to educate themselves and unfortunately being misled.
I agree completely. Shame, makes porn the default teacher because they're afraid to speak up and talk to people around them, each other, their friends, their partner,
On
their
that
parents.
note, if I can interject, I used to work at a sex shop before I got into the adult industry. And tragically, the amount of women who would come in who had never had an orgasm, never used a sex toy. And these are women, some of them are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And of course, I've got the 18-year-old wanting to buy her very first sex toy as well. And then I have to tell them how to use it and what to do. And honest to God, they would come back in a week later and hug me because they'd never had or been told about how to have an orgasm. They just never knew. All they knew was reproduction when it came to sex ed.
Yeah, and including a partner, like, the fact that they didn't even know about sex toys or any kind of
Well,
self-pleasure,
and at least our
means
generation, we had magazines, which don't
yeah,
exist anymore.
I know, sad, right? Everything's online, and the problem is that now it's gotten so broad that there's no actual I don't know, there's not a lot of intimacy in scenes. It's more the
In
more
most scenes,
crazy
people
or
don't even kiss. I've noticed that.
crazy extreme, the crazier the better. Like other
That just
than that,
alone,
like that seems to be like the way that things are going. So it's definitely not real.
yeah.
And that's
Like
like
who
the
does
focus.
triple anal on a Friday night?
The difference between like what happens on set and what real intimacy with a partner looks like is the emotional connection. The vulnerability where you can actually share like, "Well, that feels good or that doesn't feel good or even the consent of, nice sweet consent of
Yeah, and
gentle.
sex can be awkward, it can be silly, it can be embarrassing, and you just
Very
laugh about
much.
it.
Laughing, silly, things aren't working.
Exactly.
You may need some lubrication, you may need to take a break, you may
Exactly.
need some
And
water.
that's what's
All those
real, but
things
we
are
don't
not
show that.
shown. Exactly.
Because no,
And very much the ongoing consent where it's like, can I do this? Can I do that? Do you like that? Always asking your partner, are they okay? And actually caring about that. That's not what you're going to see on adult entertainment because they're, like you said, they have made a plan. Like there's a production happening. You have four ways you're going to act. You have ways you have to turn your body. You have to take pictures in those same ways before you even do the scene.
God,
it's
and
it's
sex stills, I completely
very
forgot to
hours
mention
and
that.
hours of production. If anyone is modeling their real life intimacy off a performance instead of talking to their actual partner, whose responsibility is that? Is that ours?
Was as a porn star.
Is it our responsibility as an industry that they're not communicating with their partner?
No, but we do have an audience which we can choose to influence if we want, but it isn't on us at all. But sometimes it feels like there's pressure for it to be.
Yeah. Because people are using us as a teacher. And unless you are specifically saying this is sex education so that you can learn to relate to your partner, which I'm sure in further episodes we'll talk more about things like that. it's something where it's like you've just got the misconception that what you're watching on a screen is something that you're going to do with your partner in real life. How do you think it helps that we have these conversations? Because a lot of times we're pushed out of the conversation because they think, oh, you're in an exploitative industry and you don't want to be doing that. So we don't even care about your opinions.
Right. And that's what infuriates me the most is that people don't realize that we have so much agency as a performer, especially on set, when it comes to making sure that we're comfortable and we're consenting and that we're okay.
What do you think is one of the most common misconceptions?
That we want to be there. That
Yeah,
we
that it's
actually,
trafficking.
is that it's
I mean,
sex
I hate
trafficking
to
is what
laugh at
everyone
that,
thinks
but
we
like
are.
they literally connect us with human trafficking. And I'm not saying there's not bad apples. I'm not saying there's not predatory practices because every single industry in the whole world, every job has predatory people in it. But
Exactly.
the industry as a whole, those who are there are consenting to do this. They have
They want
agreed
to
to
do it.
it.
It's the funnest job in the world.
They've signed paperwork, they've gone through the process. You can't just be put into an adult film without your consent. So I think it's the fact that that assumption that adult creators are trafficked or coerced,
Yeah.
it it really what
I
it
think it
does
would
is
come
it just
across on their performance as well. They'd be crying for God's sake. Like,
that's true. I mean, it would. And what it does is it distinguishes the real serious issue of trafficking from consensual adult performers and explains how that when you put us along with them, you really erase the voices of the people working legally by choice, but also identifying real traffic victims because now you're lumping them into something that is an entertainment industry and not actually paying
well,
attention to who's actually being
it's
hurt.
completely misunderstanding sex work and just putting sex work under one umbrella and thinking that we're all victims and we've all had a tragic past and, damaged childhood, God forbid, when actually they don't understand there are different, pathways of sex work and you can't put it all together. It's like saying, I guess, I can't think of an example, but we can't say one type of industry creates the same type of people.
Exactly. Like everybody and there are survival sex workers. Like there are people out here that are putting themselves in danger, meeting up with people, doing things where they're not that there's really no one protecting them. And again, there are these predatory people out here that are taking advantage of those people. But those predatory people exist in every single aspect
Yeah.
of society
And I'm
because
sure there is some.
they're just predators.
Exactly. And I'm sure there's some amateur pornography that tries to make out that it's high end and pro. But in the industry we're in, we're in the top mainstream professional studio shop pornography studio industry. And then very strict regulations. It's very corporate. They care very much about our safety and our willingness to want to be there.
Exactly. And like we said, the ongoing consent, I think it's just constant throughout, you know, verbal check-ins. Some people have safe words. It depends on the kind of content
Thing,
they're making.
during the performance, you can tap your partner on the thigh, just be like, hey, it's a bit too rough or a bit too fast. And your partner will instantly recognize that and change the pace or change the position. Or you can yell cut at any time.
Exactly. You can
And I tell
stop
this to
whenever
my
you want.
friends. I'm like, even if you just want a cup of water or you just want to check your phone, who cares? Just yell cut if you need a moment to breathe or to catch your breath because you've got a stitch from reverse cowgirl.
That does happen.
Happened to me.
So basically, these boundaries and this consent is just established pre-scene negotiations, checked in verbally throughout it, and even closed out with aftercare and debriefing. And sometimes they even do exit interviews, so that way they
Yeah.
know, like, did you consent? Were you good? Is everything okay? How did you feel about that? So when critics say that the industry has no boundaries or consent structure, it's just wrong.
I know. It's
It
insulting and it
might be
shows ignorance.
invisible. It's invisible just like a Hollywood movie, but it's definitely a performance and a production and not true intimacy. So let's talk about who actually does this work because there's a stereotype that rarely matches reality. Many performers are single moms, women who've left abusive relationships, people supporting their families, students, people building a whole business. There's a whole business structure on the, again, off screen that most people don't know about. We pay our taxes, we run production companies, we have bank accounts, we everything that would happen in a mainstream movie is part of these movies.
Yeah.
What do you think the online adult community ends up being more supportive for women than traditional employment paths? Why do you think that that happens sometimes?
So you're saying that the online community, what do you mean by that? You mean like our followers?
No, like us making adult content, being in this industry, how can that be more supportive than a just a job,
Okay,
and
how
what
can we
benefits, right, like what benefits do you think that creates for people? I know what it does for me,
well,
but I'd like your opinion.
we're all CEOs. We're all our own CEOs. We're self-employed. We have, like I said earlier, we have our own agency. We have full control over our business and our branding and how we want to advertise ourselves. And yeah, it's a hustle, but we are the boss.
Right. And that leads to financial freedom and flexibility and community support. Like we actually support each other and we see each other several times a year at conventions and things like that, or are setting up scenes and collaborating with other people, and especially online. I mean, everybody supports each other. So if there's a problem, then it's known throughout the community, and we have things
Yeah,
like free speech coalition, and we have things like a union, and all those things exist within our industry. So it's not just this free fall of people out here just making content. Now, does that exist? Sure. You can't stop it with platforms like OF and platforms where you can post your own content, but it is their responsibility to get paperwork, and those platforms do require you to have
IDs.
proof that they agreed to that. Okay, so people always say that we sell our bodies. What's your response to that?
Oh, I've got so much to say about that. Doesn't everyone? Doesn't a
Exactly.
hairdresser sell their hands and that skill and put a price on it? Doesn't a scientist use their brain, that organ, and put a price on it? We all, we all have our labor and we all put a price on us in order to determine what income we think we're entitled to. Everyone sells themselves. There's no debate about it. If you disagree, don't accept your wage from your full-time job because you're selling
Exactly.
yourself.
Because every job involves trading time, energy, intelligence,
Your
a
physical
physical
body
skill.
doing something, whether it's typing at a
I
computer
mean,
all day.
think of every single athlete out there. They literally put their brains in damage, their entire body parts in damage to entertain you. And honestly, I just don't even see a difference.
There isn't
Like,
one.
they're out here entertaining and they get paid a ton and they're supported and they're worshiped, and we're looked at like we're below the system just because it's related to sexual intimacy. So, I mean, to me, there's not much of a difference. We have physically demanding jobs. They require conditioning, stamina, skill. Not everybody can do this.
Yeah.
But it's not just a physical act. It is connected to intimacy in a sense, and sometimes you can have that, like you said, passion for who you're with, or it becomes like really an intimate situation. But, in the end, it is a performance. It's not out here trying to connect with every single person that you're filming with.
Yeah.
Mm. And that's where I think, we always said there's not much emotional intimacy, and it wasn't really on my end. But I
There
mean,
can be
is there a lot of
chemistry if
emotional
there's intense
is there a lot
attraction.
of emotional intimacy with any job? I don't
Good
think there
point.
is. We compartmentalize things. We put it in little boxes
Yeah,
and saying
we
like,
all have
this
our
is your
work
work.
persona and our home persona.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's talk about health and safety, because that is also a misconception of us, and it ties directly into, responsibility and care. What does testing actually look like in our industry?
What does testing look like?
Yes.
So we get tested every 14 days, a full panel of every STD you can think of, literally everything: hepatitis, syphilis, HIV, gonorrhea, chlamydia, MGen, Trich. I think I've listed most of them. If you can think of one more, I think there might be another one I just missed out. But anyway, we have 14 days from the moment we get tested. I think is it the day after we get tested? Those number one day begins from the
Right.
day, and then by day 14, that is the
You
last
have
day
to do
you
it
can work
again.
on that test. And if you work on day
Even if you don't work during those 14 days, you have to get tested
you have
again.
to get tested again because your test has expired. It is over 14 days old. And the
Right.
reason for that is because it takes approximately 2 weeks for STDs to show up in your blood work or your urine because there's an
And most
incubation
of the
period.
general public have no idea. about any of this.
And we're the cleanest,
They,
safest people there is.
the general public and their sexual health practices are very lacking. Ours are far more frequent and standardized and rules. And honestly, like that was a big part of for me personally when I chose to get into the adult industry from being in a open swinging lifestyle. It was because I wanted the rules. It was because
Yeah.
I wanted the protection. It was because I wanted the 14-day test and want to know everyone that I was with and if they were healthy or not. So, like, outside of that, personal practices are
That was
not
one of
as
my
safe as
reasons
we
for
are.
joining the industry too. Like I love to have fun, I love to play around, and I wanted to make sure that I was in a safer environment. Because most
Exactly.
people do not get tested and they do not want to wear a condom. And you ask them to wear a condom, and they go, "What, you think I've got something?"
And
And you're
they
like,
take
"Well,
it
now that you've
personal
just said
as if you're
that,
saying there's something wrong with you, where none of us do that. There's no, you should be having these conversations with your
yeah,
partner.
God, I
You should
once
be having, I don't care if you are in a monogamous relationship, you should both go get tested together
the biggest red
because
flag
you
I ever
never
had."
know the situation.
Well, the biggest red flag I ever had was I got with this guy and I wanted to get some condoms, and he was like, "I don't do condoms," and I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Why should you?" He's like, "I don't need a condom. Why are you being like that?" He's like, "Why are you being insulting?" I'm like, "This is over. You need to go home. Nothing is going to happen." Like, he said, "But I don't
Exactly.
do condoms. What's the big deal?" I'm like, "It's a big deal." And I'm like, "I
It's a
don't
big
do
deal.
chlamydia. I don't do gonorrhea. I don't do pregnancy. Like, that's
I
what
don't
this
do
is about.
herpes.
I don't do any of that." And he was like,
See, and that's the
and he was
difference is
so
that that
pissed off. I kicked him
attitude
out.
is terrible in the general public. And we're talking about protecting women or even protecting each other and respect and consent. Well, if you're not taking care of your sexual health and you're hooking up with somebody else and you're with a partner and you're not willing to protect them, which aka a condom or a test,
Yeah.
then you don't really care about their health. And that's something that this industry does. And the second that anybody has anything major, aka maybe an HIV test come back, the whole industry shuts down. There becomes a moratorium on the whole industry because they want to make sure they
Exactly.
can contact trace every person that may have been exposed to that person and know where it may spread before those people can go out and spread it. So it's to the point where the whole industry will stop if something comes up that's serious. Like, in other words, if you're all about my body, my choice, then why are you out here judging and shaming people who are in this industry when they've made the choice to do it?
Because they exclude sex workers. That's why. They don't support all women. They've been raised to believe that sex is taboo and it's inappropriate or it should be private or it's just frowned upon. It's not something you do outside of wedlock. It's the attitudes in society towards sex that have been ingrained into people for years. And it's internalized misogyny as well.
Yeah. Patriarchy, misogyny. And when it comes down to it, the principle has to apply even to choices that you may not do personally. Like, maybe you're not okay filming with other people or even being outside your marriage, but that doesn't mean you get to decide what somebody else does. So, claiming to support body autonomy, but then there's a strange disconnect where it's like all of a sudden I can go out and get an abortion, but I can't go out and have sex on camera. So I don't know. There's just a strange disconnect there. There's a strange hypocrisy there. And like we said earlier, every industry has predatory people in it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's very minority in our industry. How do you talk about that without it undermining everything else we've discussed? So, like, why do you think there's predatory people in your opinion?
In our industry or just in general,
I mean, really, in general, I guess.
because men think that they have a right to women's bodies. That's as simple as it comes down to. Women are seen as property. They're given away by their father on their wedding day and held passed over to another man to take ownership of. And that's in every culture. It was in the UK up until 1991, it was legal to rape your wife up until that time in marriage. It's disgusting.
And
So there's an
that's literally when I
entitlement.
graduated. That's when I graduated from high school. So, like, up until that point, like, it was okay to do that,
Yeah,
which
a wife cannot prosecute her husband for him raping her in the UK. So men feel they are entitled to women's bodies, and that we're there to please, be subservient.
And,
That's the
in this
problem.
industry, just like any other industry, like we said, there's always bad actors, predatory individuals. It's true in everything: entertainment, sports, religion, corporate America, anywhere, the government. Like, again, it's the idea that they're entitled. It's a strange entitlement that, but then there's I support my body, my choice, but on the other hand, I'm entitled to your body and it's not your choice. So it comes down to basic consent, I think, with just humans in general, of you have no rights to anyone else and you have no rights to tell them what to do either.
It's about respecting other people at the end of the day, regardless of their gender.
Well, and I think that comes back to our interest in being ambassadors for HASSL, and that the whole concept of HASSL is that we want people who are advocates for treating women well. We need men. We don't want to exclude the men. We don't want to
And
say
it's
this
not
is
all
all about
men. It
women.
isn't all men, but it is men.
It is
And
men.
we need allies. We need male allies to call out their friends to say,
To
dude,
call out their
your sexist
friends.
joke is
The good
toxic.
men the good men need to call out the bad men. Yeah. Let's see. So, I mean, I don't know if there's an actual solution other than what we're doing here, because it's silencing us and excluding adult creators from these kinds of conversations is not the answer. I think that these kind of conversations need to keep happening. I think performers like us who have such a large audience of male fans and those interested are the exact people that need to hear from us. And here is having these conversations.
Do you want to
And
discuss what
that's
happened on our ambassador platform yesterday regarding whether we should even be a voice?
You're welcome to. You wanna tell us about what happened?
Okay, so were ambassadors, and there was a fellow ambassador who queried whether or not there should be sex workers on the platform who should be also be ambassadors. And she said that she's personally not comfortable with ex prostitutes or porn stars advocating for women's rights. I chimed in because I couldn't help myself. And I said, well, I have a huge reach. I've got experience with amazing fans who do pay attention and they're good men, but they're the perfect type of audience that we do want this campaign to reach out to. And her view was that she unfortunately was assaulted by a partner because he said she looked like a fellow porn star. Therefore, she was projecting blame onto us. And that's projecting blame away from the predator
Mhm.
and thus trying to shame other women for what they've gone through.
Yeah,
And it's like, we're not responsible for what happened to you. I'm so sorry what you've gone through. I'm not invalidating it, but you do need to blame the perpetrator, not us.
right. And I think that's, the big piece here is that when someone objectifies a partner or tries to emulate, like, violence or predatory behavior because they've seen it on a screen, that doesn't make it's the actor or the producer or the director's responsibility to stop that
Well,
person from being a predator.
you've brought
You
something up.
can't you
So you brought something
Okay.
up very interesting just then. Are we going to cut out all movies, and I mean Hollywood movies, such as Mission Impossible, James Bond, that show violence and murder? Because, oh God, anyone who watches those movies is going to become a murderer. They're going to become an assassin. Oh, my partner did XYZ to me because he watched James Bond and he thought it was okay to shoot, my friend in the head because we had a disagreement. It was James Bond's fault. It's the same logic. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it's like saying, like, you like serial killer movies, so you're a
Well, look,
serial
yeah, I mean,
killer.
I've already toned it down, but
I'm
think of
gonna
the
be
horror
out here
movies.
murdering people because I enjoyed a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch horrors because I'm a wimp, so that's why I forgot to refer to them. I only like
That's
screams.
okay,
That's the
that's
only one I
okay.
can handle. But it's true. Are you going to watch a horror movie and then immediately go stab someone? No.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, the individual has their own free will, and content doesn't remove someone's choice or accountability for how they
Exactly.
treat another person. So I think the real work isn't banning or shaming our industry, but building understanding and keeping that door open for these conversations so that the men can hear from the people that they do like to watch online and hear that we're supporting your women. We're
Exactly.
supporting your partner. We're here to entertain not just you, but also your partner. Why can't she be included? Like, you don't even have these conversations. And because we're opening that door to say it's okay to have these conversations, please do. And,
And
you
to be
know,
fair to this user on the platform, she was quite receptive to listening.
she was, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that she had a concern, but when we explained our take on it and that we weren't there just to spam, hassle,
Yeah, she
or
was
try to
scared that we would
sell.
spam our content to try and get more
Yeah,
followers. And we're like, that's not why we're here. We have a large following. We want to educate because we think they're the type of audience that this campaign is perfect for, to get their message out for, which kind of
exactly, and
goes
that's where
unsaid, but she needed to be spelled out.
the work with hassle comes back in, like prevention through education, not exclusion. Like, don't exclude us. It's about helping people understand there's a difference between what they're watching and what's real, and respectful relationships require that. Like, you have to understand that those are two different things. So, just to wrap it up, if someone's in a relationship and worried about their partner's expectations and they've been shaped by adult content, what's a healthy way to open up that conversation, in your opinion?
That's a tough one. So how would you do it?
I mean, I think you have to approach it with curiosity and not accusation. Like, in other words, I know in
You
my personal
you can't
experience,
show
I was.
judgment, I think. You need to be neutral.
Well, and personally, I was a monogamous wife for 10 years, never watched any adult content. I'm honestly not a watcher. I'm a doer.
Me
So
too.
like, I was never much of a watcher. And, back then I was a new mom. I had to deal with all the, that kind of thing. And that was really like the first step in us like connecting more with each other, was like he was watching it anyway. So then it was like, why don't I include myself in this? And then it's not so scary. Then it's not so excluding you and,
You don't
and
feel like you're
putting
being
you in a corner.
betrayed because you're like, this is what we're doing together. It's just an activity. Okay, you like to watch these women who you're not cheating, you're just
Now
exploring.
you know what they do like. Like, it opens the conversation of like, what do they enjoy? And you can be there to distinguish between, wait, that's just fantasy. Hey babe, no, we're not doing that. It opens those conversations even between a couple, because you're watching what they're watching. You can actually say, wait a minute. Instead of getting a strange jealousy, because I think that also comes into play with women, is that they're jealous of an entertainer, as if like their man has a personal relationship with that entertainer. And I can't tell you the amount of times people DM me saying that their husband was kicked out of the house because of me and things like that. And I'm like, I don't. And sorry to say, but a lot of times that's because they're talking to a scammer that's not even me. I don't even
Yeah.
talk to
No,
these
I've
people on
had that.
social
I've had
media.
Katie, you know this one pretending to be you. You should really stop this. I'm like, it's not my responsibility that you're falling for that. All my
Yeah.
accounts are verified.
Yep. I have over 100 fake accounts of me on TikTok, and I've tried to take down them. The company I pay tries to take them down, because I also had somebody tell me I should pay somebody to do that, and they refuse to. TikTok is not here. It's in China. They don't care. Like, they
Yeah, I
don't
know.
care that there's a billion scammers. So like, we have no control over people pretending to be us, but the fact is that you're not going to talk to me in person unless you pay me as a coach now, or you pay me in some other way to chat with me. It's not going to be free, and I'm never going to ask for money. And unless
Exactly.
you're paying on a platform or you're buying my content. That's not how that works. So, what would you say to someone still holding judgment about performers, even after this conversation?
I'll say to hold judgment about someone that you've never met, never done research on is ignorant. And to open your mind, see them as actors no different to mainstream Hollywood, appreciate they're playing a part, and they are normal, real people. We go home from work and we cook dinner, we clean the house, we do the laundry. We have very boring lives outside of set. And just to not be
Of us
threatened.
married, a lot of us have children. This is literally a career. So we're not out here being crazy. Most of us are pretty introverted, honestly, which is why we're probably more extroverted
Yeah.
on a screen, because in person we're more introverted. So we feel more comfortable with a
Well,
small
I've
crowd.
got friends who've got boyfriends and who aren't in the industry. We've all hung out and they're not looking at me like I'm some predator who's going to steal their boyfriend. They know I'm
No,
just a normal girl who just wants to hang out and I'm not going to, initiate an orgy. Like,
it's just a random orgy
hey,
on a
hey, let's
Tuesday.
just do this. It's Friday.
So if someone takes away just one thing from today, what do you think it should be?
Sex workers aren't the enemy. We're on our own journeys. We're trying to explore ourselves. don't tarnish us all with the same brush. We're not all damaged.
Yeah, and stop linking us to real crime. We're not out here being criminals.
Yeah.
And I think a big fact is, like the girl brought up on Hassel, is that what's on the screen is a fantasy, period, not real. Real intimacy requires real communication,
Yeah.
and judgment doesn't create any kind of change. So if we want change, we have to be able to have these conversations and not be told that we can't participate because we're experts. Like that doesn't even make sense. They want to come to us to watch and learn, but when we open our mouths, all of a sudden now we're not able to participate, which makes no sense. Like, wouldn't you actually want to talk to the expert that your partner's watching, the
Well,
person
and
that your
also
partner's watching?
people seem to be shocked that we can be an adult performer and be a feminist. Like the
Yeah.
two can go hand in hand. I can care very much about women's rights and advocate for them, whilst also having a job that's really fun and just exploring female sexuality and advocating for sexual well-being, which was a problem when I worked at the sex shop, because so many women didn't even know how to access their sexual well-being.
Yeah.
You know, it's
We're
so
all about
layered.
sexual wellness and, having healthy connections, having healthy relationships. And those things don't just come with no conversation. Those things don't just come with no consideration, no clarity. If you want to have a healthy relationship with your partner, you can't make a $1 billion industry disappear just because you're
Exactly.
mad. So stop being mad at the industry and start opening your mouth and having those conversations with your partners so that you guys can actually build that connection, because your connection's being broken by something that honestly doesn't exist. So, any last words?
It's been great talking. I'm very happy to be here and I can't wait till next week.
Me too. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And you can find us on YouTube at SIPS Media. You can find us on all social media at SIPS Media too. And then the podcast is the SIPS Experience, and that is on all platforms. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and I can't wait for Katie to come back and we'll have another fun conversation.
We shall.
Yay! See you
All
later.
right.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.